Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. In the last video we went over REST API calls, and so if you're unfamiliar with REST API calls and how they work, please watch this video. And in this video we're going to do one step further and continue with this time working on a weather application. And so if you want to follow along, you can go to my website, tomcotech.io, go to Guides, Motion Canvas, Projects, Weather Preview, and you can get a glimpse for what we're going to be working on in this video, in this tutorial. And if you want to follow along, you can follow this page, and all information that you want in this video is listed here as well. This document is served as a companion to this main video. So without further ado, let's begin. To start off with, I'm using Node 20.17.0. And so if you're using 20.17.0 or later, what you're seeing should work for you. And so to start with any new Motion Canvas project, we can go npm init motion canvas.latest. We want this to be our weather application. TypeScript's good. And then we want to render it like so. And then we can go to cd weather, npm I or npm install. And give it a moment for it to install. Perfect. And so now I'm using VS Code as my IDE. If you have WebStorm or Vim or Nano or whatever you want to use, open it up at this time. For VS Code, I have the code extension enabled, so I'm just going to go to code dot. It will open up, and let me rearrange my working space. You can ignore this brew stuff, as it is something I did custom with my computer. Weather, we can go npm start. Perfect. And then we can go localhost 9000, and we're good there. First thing we want to do is update our project.ts to change all the example to weather, if I can spell weather correctly. Can't seem to spell weather right now. And then I can go in here in scenes, you can delete the meta file, and example.tsx, you can rename it to weather.tsx. And we can refresh a few times, and eventually it will get working. Next, we want to change our background, and to do our background, you can click right here, swing that all the way up to white, and for A, you can either press and hold and drag to get rid of it, or if you want, you can go over here and then change this value to 1, and that will also work. So the first thing we're going to do when creating this weather application is I like to do baby steps. I like to make sure, hey, is everything working? So we're going to go from circle to code. We can get rid of all of this. And we can go view.add code. You could use text. Text works too. For me, it's more of I'm doing backend API stuff, so why not just use code? Something that we normally don't get to use. And so for our code, we want font size to be 15. It will be a little small at first, but when we display the actual JSON object, it will be the perfect size. But just to make sure everything is working, hello world. And the fill needs to be black because by default it is white. and we can see our little tiny hello world. Now, to get our data, we're going to be using a site called Open Medio. And the reason why we're going to be using this is it's free to access for non-commercial uses, and it requires no API key required. The reason why I picked it is because it is a free weather API. I don't want to have to worry about authentication for this tutorial, and this provides everything that I want. So we can go over to where it says API docs, and we can start selecting the attributes that we want for our API. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And so for our time zone, I am in the Chicago area, so I'm going to pick America, Chicago for my time zone. And then if I knew the latitude and longitude, I can just select it here. Otherwise, if I don't, I can just go hit Chicago. I have Chicago under recent, but if you don't, Chicago, there it goes. And then it'll automatically fill the latitude and longitude. If you were from, let's say, Mexico City or Los Angeles, you can search for that as well. We want 7 days default. We don't want hourly. We want to do a 7-day thing, and then we want the max and min, and then we also want the weather code. The weather code is used to display, is it sunny, is it rainy, and it really puts our weather preview or 7-day preview. It really adds that extra kick that you want. I'm going to leave the rest of it unselected. In the future, if you wanted to, let's say, snowfall, since we're going into winter in the northern hemisphere, you might care about that. Sunrise, sunset if you want. You can customize it later. Now, because I'm in the United States, I'm going to select Fahrenheit, miles per hour, and inch. If you're outside America, then you can pick whatever units you want. For the time format, we have ISO 8601 or the Unix timestamp. Now, we are going to be dealing with the Node.js date object. So if I picked ISO 8600, it's just going to give me the year, month, and date. It's not going to really give me any time zone information. And by default, the normal date object for Node.js doesn't really support time zones either. So to fix that issue, instead of installing another library, we're just going to go to Unix timestamp. And then we have our reload chart. We can reload it, and you can see our information. And then there's this option to open the API in the new tab. I'm just going to go raw data print to just show you what the information looks like. So there's our different timestamps that do take into account our time zone of Chicago. So then we're going to go back to our Motion Canvas site, and we're actually going to utilize this API. So from the API tutorial, oh, and I forgot to remove the create ref line because we're not using any references for this video. But we can go const response equals yield fetch, and I'm going to go over here, click the URL, AC, Command A, Command C. There's my API, and then I'm going to go const data equals yield response.json. If you're confused on why there's yields and why I'm using response.json, please watch the API video. And we're just going to replace this code with from hello world to json.stringify, and then we can have our data null, and I want it to have indentation, so we're going to change that to 2, and we can see now it fits the entire screen for what we want. Very nice, neat, and organized. Now, with this data, you can see that we have an array of time, array of codes, array of max, array of min. The way you would read this is index 0 of time correlates to index 0 of weather code, correlates to index 0 of max, etc. And likewise 4, 4, 4, 4, it all is in line. While you can continue the rest of the tutorial just parsing it like that, I find it easier and more efficient, at least for me, to create a master or object or an array of my own custom temps object, so that if I wanted to customize something or change something before it goes to the rest of the code, I can very easily do that. And so, and you'll see why coming up. So I'm going to have a custom array called temps. And because we're doing TypeScript, I have to now define what my array is, or the objects in my array. And so I want the date, which will be an object of type date. And then I want a day, so like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then that will be a string. And then I want the high and the low. High, and then this will be a type string. You can see over in what we're given is a number with decimals. We're going to change that and convert that into a string so that it is easier for us to display it in Motion Canvas, because we're dealing with types. Things are expecting strings. Likewise, we're going to go low, string, and then code. We're also going to have this be a string. And now this is an array of objects. We're going to set this equal to an empty array. And now we're going to parse this information. Or actually, before we parse, as mentioned, we want this to be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We are, with the Node.js date object, we're not using any libraries or modules, or external libraries or modules for this. It gives you it as a 0 through 6. So 0 is Sunday, 6 is Saturday. So to convert from that number to a day, we're going to have some sort of mapping function. So const weekday equals, and then I'm going to use abbreviations because I only have so much room to work in. And if I had the full like Sunday, Monday, that extra day part is going to take up a lot of extra space. So I'm just going to use abbreviations for now. Not use twos. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Perfect. And so now we're actually going to parse this information. And so we're going to do a for loop. So let I equal 0. I is less than. We want our data. And if we look over here, data daily dot, and then we want to go into time dot length of the array, and then we're going to increment each round, and then we're going to go into our temps array, and we're just going to push the new information in there. And so I can copy my temps here, paste them down here to kind of create more of a template to use. We're going to replace each one of these. So new date, and again we can just go data daily time, which one? We want to go to the ith index. And then we want to go to weekday. And which weekday? We want to put this whole thing in there, and it's giving me an error because it's not a string. It doesn't know how to map it because I'm getting back a Unix timestamp, essentially, or a date object, I should say. So I just want to get the date, or in this case, get day. And so we're good there. There we go. And then for high, we get decimals. We don't want decimals. We want rounded numbers. And then I can go data.daily dot temperature max. Which one? I want the ith location. And then I'm going to do the whole thing to string, because as mentioned, I want it in as a string format. Low, it's going to be the same thing, but instead of max, I want min. And then for code, again, we start off with data daily, and then we want weather code. Which one? We want the ith weather code, and then from there we want to go to string. From there, we're going to save. Nothing changes, of course. We want to actually view what we have, so we're going to change data to temps. And if you look at this, what seems strange? Our dates are off. This is 1970. With proper Unix time, you're looking at each second. With Node.js Unix time, you're looking at it per milliseconds. So to fix that, we're going to multiply our value by 1,000, because there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second, and now we get the right dates. So you can see today is January 2nd, and so our date is January 2nd. This other part is more of the timestamp information, if you will, or how far away from Unix or GMT or Zulu time or wherever, England, you want to be. You are, that's what we'll display there. You can see our day is Tuesday, our high of 32, or a low of 23 in Chicago, our code is 3, whatever 3 is. And so next, we want to actually parse this information, or not really parse. This is the parse information. We want to now display it in our motion canvas animation. So for this, we're going to use a text box, a node, and a spline. And so then below the code box, because we want to build on top of the code box, we're going to go view.add. And then our first thing we're going to do is put everything in a node. This keeps it very organized. And if we need to manipulate anything at any time, we can just manipulate the node instead of the different items in between it. So we are going to create a spline for our shape. And if you're wondering how are we coming up with a design, what do we want to think about when doing this, we can just Google weather preview. Sure. And you can go to images, and you can see this is about the feel that we're going for. So there's a bar, sometimes there's something in the corner, sometimes there's something like this. So this is the kind of vibe that we're trying to go for. So for our spline, we can do line width equal to 4. We can do, here I'm going to actually close this off so I can get that error to go away. We want our fill to just be a bluish color. So I picked 007F, FF. And then for our smoothness, I want everything to have sharp edges. So I have to override the default and put a smoothness of 0. And then for our points, we just have an array of arrays. So for our first point that we want to do, let's just do 2500. Nothing displays there yet. So now let's try our next one, 350, -100. And we're going to go -200, -100, -200, 0. And we can see that we have somewhat of a bluer bar that's displayed. I like to do all my stuff in the center, and this is just a general shape that I'm going for. To get this, I started off with a square or a rectangle, and then I just adjusted the points as I wanted to, as I saw fit. I like to do it in the center so that the points are a little bit easier for me to calculate, and then I like to have a position, because if I needed to change the position, let's say I built it up here in this corner, if I wanted to change the position to down here, now I have to do a bunch of math to try to figure out how am I going to change this position. Numbers can get kind of wonky. I like to have everything positioned at the center first and then modify. That's just a thing I've seen that makes things slightly easier. And then 420. And so now we have our little thing in the corner. Perfect. And then we want to put some text over it. So txt. You can close it off. And the text is just going to say, in bold letters, 7 dash, not bold letters, but forecast. Forecast has an E in it. And of course we have to recenter it. So you could just have position equals and an array. For some reason I decided to have just x equals -750 and y equals -475. You can do it multiple different ways. This is just how you can control it. So you can try to center it in here the best you can. This is what I thought looked the best. So now we're done with our heading. We want to now put like individual boxes. So if I go over to your weather preview, I can see different boxes for the different weathers or the different days. So to kind of replicate that, we're going to need to go up here and utilize our rectangles. And then below here, we're actually going to start using our first import from core, which will be range. And the reason why we're using range is instead of making one box and then trying to do all the calculations and math and repeat code to modify each box one at a time, we're just going to have range to loop through the calculations and do them all dynamically. So below our logic so far, we're going to do another view.add, and to organize everything, we want one node across the entire thing. And then inside that, we're going to have our curly brackets so that we can actually do some calculations. So we have 7 days that we're doing, and we're going to map each of those numbers, 0 through 6, to I, and loop through everything. And actually, I'm not going to use curly brackets. I'm just going to use the parentheses instead, because I'm using more React-based logic. And we want another node, one for each animation as well. And next we can make our rectangle, and we can close it off, and we can put the values inside. So if I just save this now, you're not going to see anything. I can put a width of, let's say, 225. Nothing yet. Height of, we are doing this 1920 by 1080. And so for the height, let's just use 1080. 1080 divided by 2 maybe. And again, we got nothing. Let's actually add a color to this. And I'm just going to use like a bluish color. I think it's the same color that I had before. Yes, it's the same color. And there we have it there. We want to have the corners a little rounded, maybe. You really just need to work with this. Massage it to how you want it. Let's just try 10 maybe. You can see slightly rounded. And so right now if you go to our scene graph, and you can see all these different nodes are on top of each other. We want to spread them out. So let's modify just the X. And to get these numbers, you really just got to play around with what looks good. I find that negative 810 plus 270 times I. 270 is slightly bigger than the width. And this is just the offset so that we start over here. So with all that, we have evenly spaced out rectangles, one for each of the day. And so this looks good. I think we can do it one step better. I haven't really shown you guys how to use a gradient yet, so let's look at doing that. So we can add gradient up there. And what a gradient is, for those who didn't know, I can show the transition from one color to another. So I'm going to go from a light blue to a darker blue. Unfortunately, Motion Canvas doesn't really have any good documentation on this. If you try to look for the documentation, you're just going to show this. It'll be partials, gradient, and then from there you'd go to gradient props. And you can see all these different props. The best way to figure out what they do, since there really is no description, unfortunately, is just trial and error, essentially. And so that's what I did to figure this tutorial out. Next, we're going to create our gradient instant that we wanted. I like to keep everything close together so that if I'm modifying this rectangle, I can go up here to where gradient is. You could put it at the top of this function, or you could even put it up here as well if you so choose. So I'm just going to put gradient there. That's a lowercase g is what I need. And then new gradient. And then for the constructor, we have from y. And I think negative 160 seems about right. To y. Let's just do 160, the opposite of it. And then for stops, you can have multiple colors from your gradient. So you can go from red to blue to green if you wanted to. I'm just going from one color to another. So I have two stops, the first and last. So we're going to start with an offset, 0, color, and I'm just going to do like a lighter blue, if you will. 7CB9E8, B9E8, there we go. And then the next offset, and I can just copy this so I don't have to type it all out. I'm just going to use this code right here. If you hear a loud humming noise, I am sorry, the fridge just kicked on next to me. And we save the gradient, and there is nothing that changed because we actually need to utilize our gradient. And how you do that is you just take this variable or constant and you just replace this string with our gradient. You can hit save, and now you can see how we're going from a lighter blue to a darker blue, and it kind of offsets this darker blue up here and kind of has a nice like fading effect. I think it looks more professional. Next thing we're going to do is, now for each of our different rectangles, we're going to add some information to them. The first thing we're going to add, and we're going to do this below this rectangle because remember things build on top of each other, is another rectangle for like a day like header. So I'm going to copy some of the stuff in this rectangle just so it looks like it's over top. So 225. Our height is going to be same thing, but this time maybe I want to try 3. You can see how that looks. And then let's go fill equals, let's pick the lighter color because why not? You can either have the string like that or like this with motion canvas. Both will work. And then radius again was 10. And we can see that we have a slightly bluish, like you can definitely tell like there's a blue thing right here. Actually, I want the darker blue. There you go. So you can see this darker blue boxes right here. Maybe I don't want 3, maybe I want something smaller, so let's go 5. Let's try 10. And now you can see we have a smaller box. That seems good. For the X, we can just copy and paste what we have before, spread them across. For the Y, I want to raise it up a little bit, so let's try 220. And now you can see it's at the top, kind of like as a heading. So you start with this darker top, you fade down into that same color. So, and you can use whatever colors you want. It's up to you. And now for the text of the box, we can go down here and we can just go TXT, sorry. Text equals. Now this is one of the fun parts about having this in a loop or a range, because now we can use that I to also figure out what we want in our temps object. So temps of I. And if you look over here, we want the day value, and nothing happened. Oh, we got Tuesday right there. So from there, we can go X equals, and we can copy what we have here for X. And actually, we can copy what we have here for X and Y. And it just says Tuesday, 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 Tuesday. Let's try to figure out why that's the case, because that shouldn't be. Seems like down here, we times it by 1,000 up there, but we never times it by 1,000 the other place we were using the date. So if we do that, we look a little bit better now. So these are places where bugs can pop up. If you're following in the online guide, that will have already been fixed. And so we have our dates for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so next we want to display our high and low values. So likewise, we can use our text for that. And we want to go make this a high. But this time we want the Y to be, let's say 90 for the high. And then we can do the same thing for our low. And this time we want to have this just be 150. And so it's starting to look good, but we can, for stylistic choices, we can make it look a little bit better. So for the high, why don't we just make it a bigger font? I see that kind of common. So let's go 70, let's say. And then the fill, we can change this to kind of a white color. And then for our lows, we can make it a kind of lighter color. But let's go 7CB9EF. Kind of like a lighter blue color. That makes sense. Next, so we have our dates, we have our temperatures. Let's now utilize this code. Now I could have, when parsing it, converted the 3 to what I want now, and then just consume it, well, now. But for randomness sake, I decided not to, and we're going to make two mapping functions that we are going to now use. If you wanted to use the mapping functions that live in this range, when we actually did the parsing, you're free to update the code to do so. It's just multiple ways to do the same thing. So if we refresh our memory and we go all the way back down here, this is our mapping that we need to convert from. And the reason why we need to do that is if I go, let's say I go down here, text, and I can go text, and following the same patterns, temps, let's go let's go code, and I'm going to use the same X. Y, I'm going to have below the cold temperature. So 215. Like, no one's going to know what that means. And so I'm also going to not make it black. I'm going to make it like a different shade of gray. So I'm just going to, I found that all these work good. Kind of make it a lighter gray so you can go from a really light to a light to white, light blue, and then kind of like a gray in between. Again, everything stylistic with how you want to do it. But what we want to do is convert this code into some sort of mapping function. And so up here, doesn't really matter where. I'm just going to go const WMO to Word. And because we're using TypeScript, code is a string that we're getting. And let's map this out. For this, you could do an if-else statement. There's a number of ways you can do it. I find what's beneficial for me is using a switch statement. It makes things, it causes the most sense to me. And then I'm just going to have a default. If I don't have the correct code listed here, I'm just going to return the code. No point in causing an error. So for case, we can go case 0, and we can return the text, clear sky. And you can continue through this for each of these values if you so choose. For me, and for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to take the easy way out and only do the ones that are visible. I highly recommend you actually take the time to map all of these out because weather changes day by day. And so while you might have them all mapped out today, you check again tomorrow, weather changes. You'll have to go back and put a new code in, and maybe that's okay for you. And eventually, over time, you'll get the full list. But you don't. So that's what I recommend. So I'm just going to go through these numbers so I don't have to keep switching tabs. Then we have a 71. In case 85. And I'm going to go return, return, return. Now let's clear these out so I know what to do next. So for if I go back over here, a 3 is overcast. 71, snowfall. And 73 is actually moderate snowfall, or 71 is slight snowfall, so I can put slight snowfall. 85 is snow showers, slight snow showers actually. And then to consume this mapping function, just going to copy the name, scroll all the way down, and I'm just going to call the function and send the code inside. So now we can see that we're kind of overlapping a bit. So can't really have slight in there and just show snowfall, snow showers. Let's see if that works. Okay, so snow showers is again too much. So if I do that, you would have to play around with it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, make it more, make it look better. If you wanted to return back a text object for each one, be my guess, and you really just got to play with it. For the sake of this tutorial, because I don't want to do all that, I can just combine 71 and 75 and just say, we're getting snow. That's all, just snow. And if you don't have a return or a break statement, it'll just go to the next case. So 71 will mean snow in this case, as you see. So then that is that one. And so next we want to have, typically in weather patterns, you see images. So we want to do the same thing. So this time, I'm just going to copy this. And everything looks good. This time I want to have it maybe in the middle. So let's say -50. And I don't really need to color it in, make a different color. And we can see everything's in the center. But instead of words, I want an image. So I'm just going to copy WMO to Word to maybe WMO to image. And here you can have it so that instead of it being text, it could be a node. and instead of text equals, it could just be the body of the node. And you could use Motion Canvas to spend time to create different images for each weather type. It would look really cool, I think. But for our case, in our case, we don't need to do that. There are a thing called emojis, and moreover, weather emojis. So we have a snowflake, we have cloud with snow, cloud with rain, all these different type pictures here. And so that's what I'm going to do. 0, I'm going to pick the sun. If you're on a Mac, you can actually go Control-Command-Space, and you can just select your emoji there. Instead of, or if you aren't on a Mac or if you're on a Windows, I don't know the Windows shortcut, but you can click here and copy this emoji. So then for overcast, I'm going to pick this one with the sun over it. And then snow, if we looked at this, we have snowfall and snow showers. So if I type in snow, we can do just a snow fall for just a regular snowflake, and then snow showers. Gonna actually have a snow cloud, and you can switch it up however you want. Now if I go back to Motion Canvas, you need to actually use this. So we're just going to replace that with this, and voila, you got your different types of snow images. And so I think these are a little bit too small, so I'm going to change font size to maybe 100, maybe 150. Perfect. That seems big enough. And so I can see the overcast days, I can see when we're getting snow, different kinds of snow, etc. Maybe it got confusing of why do you have why do you have snow, 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 but then different images for the different days. You could say, hey, snow, if you wanted. In the documentation, if you're following along, you might look at my numbers, you might look at my WMO to image, WMO to Word mappings. They will be different than what you see on the screen, just because I'm recording this on a different day than when I wrote the document. It's all about the same. You just have to make your own. I'm giving you the tools to do so. At this time, we are basically done. We have our weather preview for the next few days. We have the 7-day forecast, and we don't really need this code block back here anymore to look at and reference. So I can just go back here and delete the code block, and I don't need this code import anymore. And technically, you're done. Now, with that said, you can go above and beyond and add a background to the animation. So let me go find some audio, find some background to spice things up. Okay, so after finding the pictures and videos, there is a folder called Public that comes with Motion Canvas. I just pasted them in Music and Winter. These were just random videos and images from the internet. So because of that, I do not own the copyright and I cannot share them with. But I am going to use them in this tutorial. So to add an existing image to Motion Canvas, right here, after your Motion Canvas core imports, you can import, and then you can call the image whatever. I'm just going to call it Winter. You could call it whatever. From, and then I'm going to go back to the public folder, and then Winter, not music, winter.jpg question mark URL. This URL part is just a Motion Canvas attribute that we need. Motion Canvas might throw an error saying that we don't need this part right here. I find with my own experience, you may not need it, but it will only work with it. So it's kind of required, even though Motion Canvas says otherwise. And then we're going to, above all the other views, because we want to have things displayed on top of our background image, we can go view dot add, and then we can do image. And actually, I forgot, we need to add an image here. There we go. Image. And then we can do source equals, and then just like any other variable. Okay, there. So you can see my image that I found is kind of small. So then we need to scale it up. Maybe 2. Maybe 3. Okay, there's still some white borders. Let's go 3.5 maybe. And that looks pretty good to me. You see some snow right here. You see some of this. And would you believe it? In the time that I took to update the weather or find the images and everything, we went from a 71 to 73 for the code. So let's go back over here. We had 71 before, now it's 73. So it changed from slight to moderate. So what we're going to do is, in our cases, I'm just going to add a new one. 73, 73. And now we're back to where we were at. So, like, this is a prime example. Over the course of this video, the weather has changed periodically because weather changes all the time. And so as you're doing this, you might notice that things are changing. And so you have to go back and update it to fix it. Where was I? So we got the image working. Next, we want to have some audio. If you've ever seen like the Weather Channel, for example, you might notice that they might play some like smooth jazz or whatever as part of the Weather Channels to not just be awkward silence. So what we need to do is, once we have our audio, and again, I can't share it with you, I'm sorry, go to source project.ts. Underneath this import, we can go import audio from public / I just called my music.mp3 mp3, and then like the image, you have to do URL, and then we need to add audio, so we can go audio. Now Motion Canvas only supports one audio track. And the animation ends when either this audio ends or the animation that we are doing ends, whichever one comes first. Because of this, we need to add an await for to the end of our make scene 2D function to only play the audio for about 5 seconds or however long we want. In the future, Motion Canvas will support multiple audio clips. And if you want to learn more, let me open it up real quick. If you want to learn more, the link is in the documentation, but programmable sounds is the pull request that you're going to be looking at, and you can go through this at your own time to try to figure out what is going on. Maybe try it yourself if you're interested. So to get this actually working, we need to, after range, add wait for, and at the very bottom, we have to remember to do our yield star wait for, and I'm just going to do 5 seconds. Again, I don't own the video or audio, and I don't want to get a copyright strike from YouTube, so I'm only going to do 5 seconds. And we can see our audio is right there. If I expand this, you can see our audio track is here, and the animation will end right here, and the audio can keep on going. If I play this now, nothing's going to happen. Where if I rewind, oh, that's loud. Yeah, so you can see the audio, and apparently it stopped for some reason. I don't know why exactly, but it did. But yeah, so then that's how you would go ahead on making it. And if you wanted to render it, you can go to video. You could do fast start, include audio, whatever, render. And then it's going to render with your animation and whatnot. And you can watch to see what part of it has rendered at what point in time. I'm almost done. Okay, that's complete. And then we can go to output, project.mp4. If I play this, you're going to hear music in the background. For some reason, this isn't playing music. I don't know why, but it should be for you. Yeah. It's very possible that my audio setup I have isn't allowing me to play the audio portion of it. But regardless, that's how you do it. If you want to take a look at the code for this, everything is in this documentation, and I have all the code listed here at the bottom of the page. And one last thing that I want to go over is, now that we have the weather application done for one city, if you go into the API, and actually I can break it down better by looking at it here in our bonus lesson, you can see latitude, longitude, weather code, or your weather stuff, temperature units, wind speed units, precipitation, time zone. There should be another thing here that says what time variant you want. Let me see if I just needed to refresh. Yeah, right here, time format. And you can have an array of different latitudes and longitudes, and you can go around the world and maybe 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there, keep the music playing, and rotate through a list of cities. And so this would be one easy thing that you could do. One idea for a YouTube channel is you could probably automate this whole process such that every hour, every day, you play, these are what the videos are, or the temperatures are for the day or for the week or whatever. And you could have like an automated YouTube channel where you just produce this kind of content which people can come and look at for what the current weather forecast is. But you can also review the Open Metro page. If you scroll down, you can see all the different data sources. You can see the API documentation on what you need, when, where, and how. But yeah, that's how you'd make a weather application. If I went over some things too fast, or if I skipped some things, or if you have comments for future videos, please leave them down below. It really means a lot to me. I do read each and every one of them, so thank you so much. In the next video, I think we're going to be wrapping up our Motion Canvas series, and I will be most likely giving updates on where we're going to go from here. There's a lot of fun and interesting things planned. Hopefully you're ready to learn a lot and help follow me on my journey to be a better engineer. And if you do, and if you want to learn more, if that's what you kind of like, then like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. Until then, I will talk to you later.